Sugandhi. I got your resume. You know the requirement and roles and responsibility for this interview. So we are seeking for a candidate who can, work, have a good knowledge on AWS and DevOps tools, and who can take care of the automation, whatever we have in place in AWS. So that is our expectation. So can you please tell about yourself?
Yeah, hi, Hari. Thanks for your time. I did have a big break post my engineering. Okay, I did work immediately after my engineering, but I had a break due to the family. And then I started my career again before 6 years as a Linux system admin. I was with Accenture and I was working for a retail client. And then as I was interested to work in cloud more, right? So that is when I also upskilled myself in AWS. And then I moved into it as a DevOps engineer. And I continued my journey with Valley Tech. So this is my experience background, and during this experience, I had worked as a Linux admin. I had worked on the system administration, supporting the servers, taking care of the patches, and also executing small projects. And then when I moved on to the AWS, I still continued working as a Linux admin for a few of the servers. So, and then I also got myself certified as a AWS solution architect associate. And then I was extending my area into the AWS, and I started working on the AWS services, starting with EC2, VPC, IAM, S3, parameters, stored CloudWatch, CloudTrail, load balancer, Route 53, etc. And then I also upskilled myself into Git and Jenkins. I had the opportunity. So I started working as a DevOps full time. So I was working, I was taking care of the build and the build and releases. And that's the main thing. So I was working on the CI/CD pipelines. And then troubleshooting across CI/CD pipelines, pod management, and also on DevOps tools. And I also supported audits as needed. And then I was also working on a lot of automations across Bash scripting, Python, Jenkins. And then I also worked on Kubernetes and Docker.
Okay.
That's a brief summary about me. If you are looking for any specific information, I can talk more about that.
That's fine. Okay. I'm good. Whatever the data what you have shared so far. So let's get started with the some questions technically. Okay. So so since you have worked on your AWS environment recently, last 2 years, maybe. So can you please talk about how you are taking care of your authentication? What is your authentication strategy as of now? And totally how many AWS accounts you are handling in your present infrastructure?
In the present AWS accounts, I have access to 8 AWS accounts. Okay, we have. And right now we are structured in a way that we have AWS accounts for different environment. Okay, so we have different for staging, pre-prod, prod, and then dev. That's how we are structured. So it's typically categorized as 2 sets of applications I handle. And all the applications are actually packaged under these 8 accounts. For us, I mean, nearly 50 plus applications are grouped under this, and it is we use a single sign-on for accessing all this for authentication purposes, which is integrated with LDAP.
Okay. So cool. So can you please, explain me the process when you have one Lambda, okay? That Lambda function need to every week, right? It need to get a list of unattached volumes. Okay, since it's unattached volume, it will unnecessarily cost you, right? So every weekly once my Lambda has to run and it has to pick the unattached volumes. Okay. So that is my requirement. So can you please tell me if we are working in that environment, how you will plan for implementing before implementing the solution? What will be your approach to your client? What are the thing you can suggest? I'm really expecting from you is the flow for the solution. Can you please brief on that?
Yes. So here, so the intent is to kind of schedule a weekly job, which will run and get us the list of volumes. I mean, unattached volumes,
Yeah.
right? So we can do you use the we can do this. We can primarily write the code with the Python Porto 3 function. So we will have the logic to go through all the snapshots and identify them, and then we will have to schedule it using the event bridge, okay, where we have the scheduling like a cron job, right? We have the option where we can schedule like a cron job where minutes, hours, month of the I mean, day of the month of the year, and day of the week. So in that format, we will have to schedule that as a weekly job. If we have any specific particular day, we can schedule in that, or we can schedule it on a Sunday or a Monday, whatever is the preferred. So we will schedule it using an event bridge, and then we will tag the event trigger with the Lambda handler. So
Okay.
if we schedule it, then we should be able to execute this as a weekly job.
Okay. So in that case, how your Lambda gets authenticated to your EC2 instances, how the Lambda's authorization works.
Yeah, in our projects, mostly we use roles. We authenticate the Lambda using the roles.
Okay, fine. So in order to get your Lambda to identify your unattached EBS volume and listing them, sending an email. So what are all the permissions you feel like you need to give it to your Lambda role?
So we should have, I think read access should be sufficient, because it's primarily we are going to read the objects. So read access should be sufficient. So an easy to read should be sufficient to execute this program.
Okay, so you are giving me a high level, input like easy to read. When it come to our environment, this is security breach. When you directly give either even though read access to the entire service, which we won't allow like that. Can you specifically tell which exact IAM permission needed in terms of achieving your requirement, Lambda requirement?
You mean like get, list?
Yeah, something like that. See, let
Yeah.
me tell you an
So
example. If it is an S3 bucket, you wanted to get some data, we will be looking for the service like get object or list object. That kind of exact permission I'll give for my activity. For your requirement, what exact IAM policy would we need to?
yeah. We will have to give them something like the easy to get, easy to list.
Okay, when you give easy to list, you will be able to, with that permission, people can misuse the role in terms of getting the list of EC2 instances, list of snapshot, list of network interfaces, list of security group, everything. No, the low role will capable of listing all those things under EC2. I don't want that thing to happen. What is our requirement? Lambda going to get the list of unattached EBS volumes, and Lambda have to send an email. So you have to tell the permission which is really needed, least permission really needed for sending an email and listing the unattached EBS volume alone.
Yeah, I think one way we can do this is we can use the resources. We can apply filters on at the resources level where we will limit it to only snapshots. Okay, that is one thing. And other way we can also handle this maybe using permission boundaries, where we actually add a permission boundary to this particular activity, and then we limit that all the other activities which we do not want it to be performed. So that is one way.
Okay,
I
fine.
think we can do this in
I
two
think
ways.
I think we don't want to loop here. We can move on to next question. Maybe end of interview, I'll tell you what exact answer is. Anyway, that's fine. So see, imagine since you have 8 accounts in your environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
All 8 accounts you have. Imagine there are one sandbox account you have. Okay, you have
Mm-hmm.
you have one EC2 instances. You deployed one of your application. Everything works fine. What your client expected. Now you have a one EC2 instance. Maybe any instance type would be you have deployed your application and sandbox is working fine. Once you are giving demo to your client, they said okay. They gave you a green light to proceed further. Now the task is for you is you have a sandbox account, right? In the sandbox account, EC2 instance is associated. You need to suggest me a easiest way to move this EC2 instance from sandbox account to prod account. What is the easiest way you can suggest me?
The simplest from the sandbox account to the prod account. So the easiest way would be to create an AMI of the instance and then do a sharing.
Okay. Is it possible from one account to another account, AMI can be shared?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay, fine. That's fine. All right. So coming to an requirement. Okay. So my client, right, they wanted to use around 3 regions in my AWS account. Okay. US West 1 and the US, West 2 and Mumbai. These 3 regions need to be used. So they are having their individual, VPCs they have in these 3 regions. So US West 1, right, they use 10.0 series, 10.1 series. US East region, right, 10.2 series. And Mumbai region, they use 172. So will I be able to make all these 3 regions can communicate in same private network?
Yeah, you said 3 regions. I didn't completely get that CADR. I mean, 10 series and 3 different series?
Yeah, we can understand high level 3 different series.
Yeah, we should be, yeah, we can use we can communicate.
Okay, what option you would approach in terms of making a communication on these 3 regions?
The VPC gateway.
VPC gateway. Okay, what gateway? Because VPC, there are lots of gateways available. NAT gateway, internet gateway, transit gateway, like many gateways are there. Which gateway you mean?
Yeah, I was referring to the transit gateway.
Okay, fine. So since if you go for a transit gateway, I personally feel like it's expensive. Is there any other way you would suggest in terms of achieving this?
I mean, this is it is from it is different accounts, right?
Same
It is
account.
different and different VPCs.
Same account, different region, different VPC, different CADRs.
Yeah, I mean, that I think that's the only way that I recall.
Okay, fine. All right. So
I mean, if you are referring to the VPC peering, yeah, yes, we can also do it with the VPC peering.
yeah, fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So coming to the same 3 region. Okay, that is our standard region for my client. Okay, Mumbai region we are using it for DR. Ideally, our client location is in US, right? So we are having 2 region. Mumbai region only is for our continuity, business continuity only. Okay. So my client, right, they are only allowed to, they are only allowed to use these 3 regions. But when I could see there are people are using other regions as well, Frankfurt region, Ireland region, those regions also people are created some rules they forgot to delete. End of month I'm getting a bill. So what is the easiest way you can suggest me so that we can restrict them only they are supposed to use these 3 regions only? Which way we can go ahead, we can restrict them to do not use other regions?
We can restrict it using IAM, or we can restrict using organizational policies also, using SCP if it is for the entire organization. Okay. Like including you can write a policy to restrict them.
Okay. So since you said there are 8 accounts in your environment, imagine out of 8, 1 going to be a master account, okay, pay route, rest all 7 going to be our member account, right? So in this SCP, the region restriction policy, you are achieving through SCP, imagine. So 7 account, you will not be able to use other than these standard region, you will not be able to use other regions, correct? But only 1 account out of the 7, if 6 going to be under our standard, only 1 account I need as an exception because people are using for the POC purposes. So how can you give it an exception to that particular only 1 account?
So under SAP itself, we can organize the accounts in such a way that we can create organizational units. So we can group the 7 under one organizational unit, and the rest one we can leave it outside. So the policy we can apply only to the 7 accounts.
Okay.
That is one way of doing it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, else we will have to do an IAM level control.
Okay. Okay. So you have a good exposure with the Terraform or something like that? Cloud formation or anything?
Yes, yeah. I
That's
mean, cloud formation I have a bit, but then it's more on Terraform.
okay, then fine. So understand, I have one requirement. You need to start work on writing a script for Terraform. Okay. So
Mm.
my client want to create one load balancer. Okay, it could be anything. Application load balancer. Imagine it is a classic load balancer or application balancer, whatever it is. So we need to create one auto scaling. Okay, the auto scaling, two instances should be desired capacity and minimum. Okay. So these two instances should be the backend nodes of my load balancer. Okay, this is the task. This is the requirement. Okay. If you are
Okay.
implementing this entire thing through Terraform, you are writing a code for doing all these things to Terraform. What are the components you will make them as a variables? Can you list one by one?
Okay, so we are going to implement a load balancer and an auto scaling group.
Correct. Using Terraform.
Yeah. Yeah. The instances information can be passed in the as a variable. The regions will be if we start with, if we have the VPCs would be passed as a variable. Okay, and the subnet values will be passed as the variable, and the instances information, regions, I mean availability zone, all these would be variables. And then we would also pass the minimum quantity, the desired quantity, all those as variables. Mm, that's all I could remember.
Okay, fine. So for the same requirement, you need to do it through Terraform. Okay, for the same requirement, you need to do it through Terraform. So before you start working on the script, before you start work on the Terraform code, you should, before you start work on the code, you should get some more information from your client. Okay. So what are the questions you will cross verify before you start work on the solution?
Before creating a load balancer.
Before you start work on the solution, I mean, before you start work on the Terraform code, as soon as you got this requirement from your client, what are the crash questions you will double verify? What are the information you will double verify with your client before you start work on the activity?
Yeah, I'll try to gather the basic requirements about the target groups, the number of instances that we would have, and the minimum and the maximum quantity, and what is the kind of health check that is expected inside the load balancer, and what is the CPU percentage, or whatever is the limit for which we should auto scale. So those are the some of the basic information, and apart from that, I'll also ask them if it is any scheduled trigger, or it should be just based on any particular metric. For example, CPU exceeding 80% means then we should auto scale, or you should scale instances at a fixed time. So depending upon so I'll gather the requirements for them. And also, we also have the opportunity to whether use spot instances or on-demand instances, or the reserved instances. So I'll also gather the requirement for that. And so I assume the AMI would be defined. So I will not be asking details on that. If not, then I'll be asking those details also. What is the AMI to be used, etc. So that then we can come up with the appropriate load balancing. configuration. Otherwise, I think the AWS also offers a provision for load balancing duration, right? So during which they fine tune the load balancer, being a managed service. So I will also try to use it until the load balance is properly provisioned.
Okay, cool. So fine. So you remember in one of our organization, out of 7 accounts, one we are gave it as an exception case, correct? For the exception,
Correct.
why we have given as an exception case, since it's globally, POC, people are doing, everyone doing in the same account. That's the reason. So end of month only, I came to know, since there is no restriction in that account, since everybody using it for the POC, I could see lots of billing getting generated every month. Okay, I'm getting shocked by seeing the account. So I'm giving this responsibility to you now. What you need to do, you need to look into the account. I'm giving you a task. Says, hey, if you want to minimize the cost in this account, if you wanted to reduce the cost in this account, what are the billing best practices you will take action immediately on that account? So cut down the cost. Can you tell me a few points? Can you suggest me from your expertise?
Yeah, I assume that is a POC account. If it's a POC account, if it's not a production or a very critical account, then based upon the, first is we will generate. As a first step, we can do this in a couple of stages. Actually, as a first stage, we can generate a list of all the resources, especially unused resources, with all the details when they are last accessed, etc. Using a Lambda function, and we can send a mail, and we can give a timeline for all the corresponding respective owners of the resources to delete them. Okay, and then if they, in case if they are not deleting them within a week or so, we'll give them a time frame. If they don't action on it, then we will run a second cron job to delete them. Okay, so that is, in that way, if anybody wants that particular resource, they will also have the timeline to secure them or let us know that they should not be deleted. If not, in next week, we will run and automatically delete all the unwanted resources.
Okay. You will take care only of your instances, not other resources?
All the resources, whatever, all the instances, be it VPCs or load balancers or AMIs or snapshots or S3s. Whatever the categories that we wanted to include, all the objects that we wanted to include.
Okay. So in that account, as I told you, like there are hundreds of people are using that POC account. How will you identify this user created this resource, that user created that resource? How you will finalize it?
No, we will pull the resources along with the tags, because usually the tagging has the owner and the stakeholder details.
Imagine if the tagging standard was not properly followed in that account. Someone came and randomly created a resource. In that case?
Yeah, we will still try to pull all the maximum details from where we can get the owner information, last accessed or created date, created by. So, and we will send it to the report. And if people are not following the standards in any way, we are giving them a time frame, right? A time frame that this is going to be deleted. So we will give them one day. We can give them 2 notices also, and then go ahead and delete it. That's what I could imagine. I'm not sure if there is any better way.
All right. Okay. So coming back, to your Terraform and load balancer auto scaling scenario. So if you wanted to know, you have done with writing a code, you are done with getting the requirement from your client, you are done with what are the variable you're gonna do, all those things fine. Now tell me, what are the things you will call it as different modules in this activity? How we will categorize your modules? This is my module 1, this resource will create, this is my second module, this resource how you will decide how many modules you need in terms of doing this activity?
Well, the most preferred approach is to have each resources in individual modules. Be it VPC in a separate module, subnet in a separate module, instance in a separate module, security groups in a separate module, target groups in separate module. That is the approach that we will prefer to follow, because then the code can also be reusable in many scenarios.
Okay. So if you are going with the dedicated resource, each module, it will not make you confused if anybody comes in future and trying to update the code or something like that after you in this project. They won't feel confused.
We will have the documentation information, and if we follow the approach as a uniform approach, I think which we follow, because if it's going to be per module per resource, then I think if the organization is aware of this is the standard, then it should not cause any confusion.
Okay.
Actually,
So
because
I have
we
around
and for anyway information purposes, we can document it. I mean, that this is how you should read that file.
okay.
Mm.
So my organization, right, we have around hundreds of virtual machines are there.
Okay.
So we wanted to execute one script. Okay. So in
Okay.
all hundreds of virtual machines, that is just to simply, one of our vulnerability we identified. So it's a
Mm.
solution for that vulnerability. So what are the easiest way you would suggest to run it in all 100?
Yeah, as we know, the standard for such things is Ansible, because when you have multiple servers, when you have actions to be taken across multiple servers, then Ansible is the best suited tool for these purposes,
Okay.
where we can execute it via.
Okay, since in order to do the same activity, AWS itself, we have a system manager. There is a service available. Why you are suggesting a third-party tool to do that? Any specific reason? Something you found special in Ansible?
No, this was the practice that we followed in our projects.
Hmm.
So Ansible has been scheduled, and the other thing is, for wherever it's possible, they wanted it to be cloud independent. They don't want to go to only AWS, and that's the reason they changed from cloud formation to Terraform, etc. So that's as I understand, this is the reason that they are following this, because we use only Ansible in our projects.
Okay, fine.
And I'm not sure if there's a heavy cost associated with the AWS System Manager,
Mhm.
but Ansible is free.
Okay. So coming to your pipeline, so can you please explain any pipeline you have built by your own, and can you please able to explain the flow behind this pipeline?
Yeah, I'll explain a basic standard pipeline, which we usually follow in most of the applications. So we usually use the Groovy Jenkins pipeline. That's what we follow in our projects. So what we do is, as a basic thing, we start with the checkout. We check out the code from the Git, and then we do a static analysis of the code using the Sonar Cube. Okay, and then we do packaging, and mostly it is Java applications in our environment. So we use MVM for compiling. So we do a packaging, and then we do scanning on the package using Nexus IQ. So we use Nexus IQ for the package scanning, and also for as a artifactory. So we compile the code, and then we scan it, and then we do the unit testing, everything, and then we upload the artifactory, we upload the var file into the Nexus, and then we have the deployment script. So earlier, if it is, we had monolithic applications also, where we do a traditional deployment, just moving the var file from the source server, from Nexus to the deployment server. And now we are also using Helm charts for deploying it in Kubernetes. This is for microservices application.
Okay,
So
fine.
again, just to summarize, we start with the Git checkout, and we do a compile using Maven, and we do a Sonar static analysis, and then we use SAST analysis using Nexus IQ, that security analysis using Nexus IQ, and then we push it to the artifactory, and then deploy into the deployment server.
Okay. So in that case, right, how your pipeline will be authenticated to your Kubernetes cluster for the Helm deployment?
I mean, I have not done this, but it is already done. As I understand, we use the IRSA, the IAM role for service account, for authentication here.
Okay. So can you please tell me, like, what open source project you have done recently for deploying through Helm in your Kubernetes environment?
Sorry, I didn't understand what open source in the sense.
Have you ever deployed, worked on any open source application?
No open source application. It's
Okay, then fine. Forget about open source. You have, created your own Helm charts for your any specific application, what you did in your environment?
yes, we've
Can you
done.
please brief about it? What application it is? What are the file you have updated? How we need to, prepare a Helm package?
Yeah, so as we know, Helm is the package manager, like YAM for Kubernetes. So it is, I mean, traditionally before we were using the YAML files, only recently we migrated to the Helm charts. And the Helm is very easy. As we know, we don't need to create all the YAML files from scratch. So we have to use Helm create and then the name. If you give them, it will automatically create a folder structure where you will have charts.yaml, values.yaml, and you will have a folder for charts, and you will have a folder for templates, and you will have a folder for CRDs. Okay, so all the templates will be available. So all we have to do is we have to update the values YAML. That's the main function with all the different variables and the values that we wanted to pass. And after passing that, when we do a Helm template, the chart name will be able to see the values populated. And then if it is going to be the first time, we will do a Helm install and Helm install and then the release name. But if it is going to be a second time, means it will be a Helm upgrade hyphen install release name. And that's how the high level. And apart from that, Helm also provides us easy options to roll back, where we can do a rollout history undo to a particular version.
Okay, all right then. Okay, Shuganti, I've done with my part. Okay, I'll now update you. So thank you. Thanks for your time.